Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to Take Two for this Friday, July the 20th, 2018. First, I want to say a little bit of trivia. Today is the 49th anniversary of man walking on the moon for the first time. Do you remember where you were when that happened, when Neil Armstrong said those words, one small step for man and a giant leap for mankind? I do. I was just very small, but I do remember that 49 years ago today. Well, it is Friday, so happy end of the week, boys and girls. It's the weekend coming up, and I know a lot of you are feeling really good about that. And I would like to talk to you today a little bit about feelings and expectations. Well, you know, different people in this world go through different feelings, obviously. Different experiences in our lives. We could even be in exactly the same situation with people day in and day out doing exactly the same thing, yet our feelings vary from person to person, especially if you're going through a difficult time like grief, for example. I do want to share one story with you. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit, and I want to tell you a story about someone I knew way back when named Doug and his wife Joyce, and they were getting ready many years ago to have their second child. Now, they already had a son, but now they were getting ready to have a second child, and they were hoping, you know, this is way back before you knew, that maybe it would be a girl this time. So they started playing around with girls' names, and they came back and forth naming after relatives and grandmothers and all this other stuff. And then out of nowhere, Joyce said, "You know what, Doug?" She said, "I've always liked the name Eileen. Maybe if it's a girl, we could name her Eileen." And Doug listened to that, and he started fuming and getting red in the face, and he started yelling and saying, "No daughter of mine will ever be named Eileen." And he just went ballistic on Joyce, and she could not figure out why this happened. And oddly enough, now I'm sharing this story because Doug has shared it himself on a number of occasions. He's actually a great Bible teacher, and he uses this as an example in one of his teachings when he's talking about feelings. And he said that he didn't even know why he was going nuts like that until he calmed down, and good old Joyce in her infinite wisdom just worked through it with him and said, "Doug, what is going on? Why are you behaving like this? All I did was say, how about we name the baby Eileen if it's a girl?" And when he stopped and reflected and thought about it long and hard, he realized that here he was a mid-30s something at the time, and probably 20 years earlier, he had a gal in school named Eileen who kind of jilted him. And he never dealt with those feelings. So for probably close to 20 years, those feelings of anger towards her and hurt were bubbling up inside of him, and it just came to a surface when her name was mentioned 2 decades later. Now, the point I'm making here, boys and girls, is undealt with feelings could erupt like Mount Vesuvius if you don't take care of them. And we all have a right to our feelings. Now, we're in grief mode right now because, of course, 4 weeks ago, it was 4 weeks ago today, actually, that my mom passed away. So different ones are grieving in different ways. A family, extended family, close friends to the family, even distant folks who were just acquaintances, they all have a measure of grief, I'm sure. Some might just for a fleeting moment say, "Ah, she was a nice lady. Oh, that's too bad she died. Oh, yeah, I remember her doing costumes at the junior high. Yeah, she was a hardworking lady. That's, I feel sorry for the family," or so. And then you have, direct children, grandchildren, even great-grandchildren. And so you have different ones of us grieving in different ways. Now, is there a right way to grieve and a wrong way to grieve? Absolutely not, okay? Different people grieve different ways. I remember when my dad passed away 16 years ago, and my mother decided she would join a grief support group with her church. So she would go, and it was shortly after 9/11 that she joined this group, because my dad died just a couple of months after the World Trade Center tragedy. And there were people in her class who had lost family members in the Twin Towers, or firefighters that had gotten killed or what have you. And then there was another lady who actually was from our street there at home that I remember growing up with her children and playing with them. And one of them, when I was a youngster, died very suddenly of an illness. And her mother, 30 years later, decided it was time to grieve. She had never grieved for her daughter who died very suddenly. I remember she got sick, and then like within 24 or 48 hours, she had died. And she was like 7 or 8 years old. And it took 30 years of her doing other things, Mom, before it came to a head, and she decided it was time for her to go to grief counseling and a grief support group. I hope it did her well. I know that there were people there who just being able to discuss this helped a lot. But at no time, and I have to say, kudos to the moderator of this class, for this group. At no time did the moderator said, you need to do this, and you have to do this, and you should do this. They never gave advice like that. Instead, they talked it out. And going back to Joyce and Doug, it was a long process, Doug shares, that Joyce worked with him. She took whatever steps it took with him to go and get counsel over this. And let me say this, a good counselor, a good professional counselor will never tell you what you need to do. A good professional counselor will help you come to those, that your own pace, come to those decisions yourself, and the methods of grief or the methods of working through feelings. So yes, we all have a right to our own feelings. Now, I'm not saying, bring in balance now, boys and girls, bring in balance. I'm never saying that means that you have the right to be a bitter, angry, hateful person. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying this, if you've been hurt, if you feel that you've had a great deal of resentment towards somebody, or if you've been bitter about something, those are feelings that you own, okay? The thing to do is to work through it. It's like my sister told me one time, the difference between bitter and better is I. So don't let any root of bitterness grow up in you. But if you do discover that you're having those feelings, work through them, get counsel if necessary. I'm a big advocate of counsel, as long as the counselor is not telling you what to do, okay? It's suggesting and giving you tools to work through your own feelings if they're not good feelings and they're feelings that are harmful to you and others around you. I think a good counselor will give you the tools to deal with those things. But yes, we all have feelings, and you know what? Even though it took that lady that I grew up with her daughter who died, even though it took that woman in my mother's class 30 years before she finally took the step, she took it. So that was a good thing. So if anybody's telling you how to grieve or how to get through something with hard, fast rules, you stop and ponder. Separate, as the Bible says, the wheat from the chaff. Separate let the scum come to the top of the pond and scoop it off and see what lies beneath, what you can glean out of that. And it is important to take good advice from folks, but on the other hand, your feelings are yours. So work through them, get help if necessary, and I would encourage you to go be a blessing to somebody today. You know, there might be somebody working through grief. I know I'm working through grief right now, and I'm working through grief very differently than others around me are working through it. And that's okay. Accept that, okay? Accept that other people are doing things differently than you are when it comes to feelings. But go be a blessing. You might end up being the only one who is. You might be able to help somebody who's walking through grief right now, and that would be a very good thing. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Jeanne Sigler, JeanneSigler. Become a subscriber. Hit that subscribe button. Watch past take-twos. And then also, don't forget to listen to some good music all weekend long on WRMZ.org. Let me encourage you to do this. 10 o'clock Central Time on Saturday morning. You'll get a chuckle, and you'll really enjoy the antics of my husband, Michael, on the road with Chef Michael on RAM-FM at WRMZ.org. Saturdays at 10 Central Time. That's 11 o'clock Eastern. Okay, I love you all very much. Have a great weekend, everybody, and enjoy your feelings, because they're all yours, okay? I love you. Bye-bye. See you Monday.